بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. We usually use this time before Salat al-Jumu'ah to answer questions that have been submitted online. If you're interested in submitting your question, you can go to hijrah.info, that's hijrah.info/QA. Is it possible for a masjid with a mortgage debt to accept zakat money? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, فَمَنِ اضْطُرَّ غَيْرْ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ, that if an individual is in a state of need, then it is permissible for him to consume, and this has to do with the meat that is not permissible to consume. So for example, if a person is in a jungle or a person is in a desert and they come across a dead animal, this animal that died by itself, as a Muslim, are we allowed to eat that meat? No, we're not, right? So an animal that died of natural causes or was killed by another animal or fell off a cliff or something, we can't eat that animal. But in a situation where it's been 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, right, I haven't eaten, there's a chance that I'll die of starvation, it is permissible for me to eat from that animal. Based on this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the scholars have said that there are things called al-dururiyat, the things that are considered necessities. And from those necessities are, the number one that we learn from this ayah is preserving our life. Also preserving our deen, preserving the intellectual, the intellect of the community, preserving our wealth, and preserving our nasab, preserving our lineage. These are considered al-dururiyat al-khams. These things need to be preserved in any society that Muslims live in. And in order for me to protect these things, it's important for us to understand where we live and how we live. So if I live in a society that is based off a ribawi system, right, which is a system that we live in, number one question we need to ask is, did we create this system? No, we obviously didn't. The second thing, if I had a choice, and just from a logical perspective, I'm not talking about religiously, does it make sense if I go to you and I say, hey, listen, I want to borrow $10,000, and you say, no problem, it's going to cost you $15,000. Logically, it doesn't make sense. So why do people engage in these transactions? And even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about in the entirety of the Quran, when He talks about riba, does He talk about the one who's taking the riba or the one who's giving it? He talks about akil riba, the one that is taking it. This doesn't mean that the person who gives it is always off the hook. Not always. But usually a person who is getting into a debt transaction, it's because I need it, right? I need it. That's the only reason I'm going to get into a debt transaction, because logically I don't want to give more money than I'm borrowing, right? If we look at it from a very logical level. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He focused on akil riba, right, the one who consumes riba, why is this a problem? If we look back during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what did the ribawi system do? People were killed because of debt. People were starved because of debt. People were taken into slavery because of debt. Some people, they had to give their daughters and they were sold into prostitution to pay off this debt. Right? So why is the ribawi system a problem? Because it leads to debt and a type of slavery to the person who is giving that debt. It leads to debt of the creditor. Of the debtor, I'm sorry. So if I'm in this system and I didn't create this system and I don't want to be part of this system, what is the best way for me to navigate? Avoid it. Right, avoid as much as you can. That's one viewpoint. I would add to this, okay, if I have to involve myself in this system, let me at least do what I can so that I benefit. Does that make sense? If I have to, if I'm forced into this box, I'm going to do the best that I can to minimize involving myself and maximizing my benefit from it. So if I'm in a community and there are a number of Muslims in that community, and in that space, we need a masjid. We need a space not just for salah, but we need a space to congregate, We need a space to discuss ideas. We need a space to discuss. We need a social space for the Muslims to get together. We individually cannot afford it. We come up, we do donations, we can make maybe 20% of what we're looking for that area and that space that we live in. What do? Do we give up having a masjid? Remember I said hifz al-din? Remember I said one of the dururiyat, one of the necessities is preserving our religion? And if that masjid will help to preserve our religion, then I would say, in this situation, it is completely reasonable for the community to take a mortgage and to purchase that masjid. As such, the second issue on whether a masjid can take zakat or not, we'll talk about that next time. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu ala khayri khalqih, nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.